Hello, everyone, and welcome to Spotlight on What's Next 2026, Week 5, From Execution to Endurance, Why Decisions, Not Tools, Now Determine Advantage. Over the past 4 weeks, we've done something many leadership conversations skip. In week 1, we reset, naming what actually mattered coming out of last year. In week 2, we moved from momentum to manage advantage, stabilizing what works before scaling it. In week 3, we confronted execution, designing systems that can move under pressure. And in week 4, we addressed AI head on, separating curiosity from value through governance. This week, we arrive at a quieter but more consequential questions. What happens after the decision is made? Because in 2026, the difference between leaders who advance and those who stall is no longer clarity, alignment, or even execution. It is in decision endurance. So think about a time in late 2024, a single automated update cascaded across airlines, hospitals, banks, and government systems worldwide. The technology worked exactly as designed. The failure wasn't the innovation, it was governance at scale. And here's what that moment revealed: that speed scales decisions faster than organizations can absorb them. Right now, while you're navigating AI adoption, workforce churn, regulatory pressure, and stakeholder expectations that seem to multiply daily, your competitors aren't pulling ahead because they're deciding faster. They're pulling ahead because their decisions hold through the chaos. Every week you spend relitigating settled choices, every escalation that lands on your desk because ownership was never clear, every pilot that technically worked but quietly died. That's not execution failure, that's decision erosion. And erosion is invisible until momentum disappears. So here's what I'm going to show you today: how to stop the invisible erosion of your leadership authority so your strategic decisions actually survive the pressure of 2026, not through more tools, not through more effort, but rather through designed endurance. Now, there's a myth that's been running through leadership conversations for the past decade. And if you've been in this work long enough, you've probably believed it too. And the myth is execution is the ultimate competitive advantage. I'm right there with you. I've certainly believed that too. That if we get the strategy right, execute flawlessly, the results will follow. And that made a lot of sense for a while, when the environment was stable enough that a decision made in January could survive until December without necessarily being questioned, undermined, or quietly abandoned. But that's not 2026. In 2026, AI accelerates both insight and error. Workforce churn disrupts continuity. Oversight focuses on decision defensibility, not just intent. And here's what I've watched happen in organization after organization: leaders make good decisions, clear strategy, sound logic, stakeholder alignment, and then anxiety spikes, or a new executive arrives, or a competitor makes noise. And suddenly, that decision is reopened. not because new information necessarily emerged, but because commitment felt fragile. The myth says that execution determines advantage. The truth, endurance determines advantage. And the organizations that win in 2026 won't be those that decide fastest. They'll be those that can hold decisions steady long enough for value to compound before anxiety, churn, or political pressure forces premature reversal. So, what does decision endurance actually require? Well, three conditions. Decision rights must be explicit, not implied, not assumed, not shared to the point of paralysis. Enduring decisions have a clear owner, clear advisory roles, and clear override conditions. Because when ownership is visible, hesitation drops. Secondarily, risk must be owned, not diffused. Endurance collapses when risks float. Leaders building advantage name the risk owner, define acceptable thresholds, and agree in advance what new information could justify revisiting the choice. This is how you distinguish learning from panic. And third, decisions must have memory. One of the fastest ways to lose trust is to forget why a decision was made. Organizations with endurance capture rationale, document trade-offs, and preserve context for audits, transitions, and reuse. Decision memory prevents organizations from relearning the same lesson at higher cost. So I want to tell you about a leader I worked with 18 months ago. She ran operations for a mid-sized healthcare system. Brilliant strategist, respected by her team. She'd spent 6 months building consensus on a major technology integration. The decision was sound. The governance was clear. The pilot delivered results. And then a board member raised a concern at a quarterly meeting. Not new data, not a flaw in the logic, just some anxiety. Are we really sure about this? Within 2 weeks, the decision was reopened. Within 6 weeks, the pilot was paused. Within 3 months, 2 of her best people had quietly started looking elsewhere. Not because the decision was wrong, not at all, but because the organization couldn't hold it long enough for the value to compound. She told me later, I wasn't defeated by a bad strategy. I was defeated by a lack of structure to protect a great one. That's decision erosion. And if you've ever watched your carefully built momentum dissolve under pressure you didn't create, you'll know exactly what she felt. Here's what changed for her. She stopped asking, did we make the right decision? And she started asking, what must be true for this decision to survive pressure going forward? That question changes everything, because decision endurance is not stubbornness. It's designed confidence. It's knowing that when anxiety spikes, there's a documented rationale. When a new executive arrives, there's clear ownership. When someone asks why, there's institutional memory that doesn't depend on who's still left in the room. So here's where we are. You walked in today carrying the weight of decisions that keep getting questioned, of momentum that keeps fragmenting. effort that doesn't seem to translate into lasting impact. And now you know it's not about working harder. It's about structuring for endurance, explicit rights, owned risk, decision memory, because that's what separates leaders who advance from those who stall. I want you to feel something before we finish. You've been carrying too much responsibility without the structural support to make things stick, and that's exhausting. But here's what's possible now. Imagine walking into your next quarter knowing that when pressure rises, your decisions have protection, not because you'll fight harder, but because the system is designed to hold. Imagine your team moving faster because commitment feels solid, not fragile. Imagine reclaiming the mental capacity you've been spending on defending settled choices and redirecting it toward building what's next. That's not a dream, that's designed confidence, and it starts this week. Here's your action. Choose one active decision that's currently in play. Write it down, one page. Who owns it? Who owns the risk? And what new information would justify revisiting it? That's it. No new committees, no new tools, just clarity that endures. If by Friday one debate stops or one escalation disappears, you did it right. I know the weight you carry, leading transformation in complex environments with high accountability, but often within limited authority, while navigating change that seems to multiply faster than capacity can absorb. That takes something real. And my conviction is this: you don't need more heroics. You need systems that make your judgment durable. That's what decision endurance provides. And as you move into this week, know that every choice you protect, every ownership you clarify, and every rationale you document compounds over time into credibility, into trust, into the kind of leadership that doesn't just survive pressure, that builds something that lasts. Execution moves, endurance wins, so design for the hold. Again, this is Dr. Rhonda Farrell wrapping up week 5 of Spotlight on What's Next 2026. From execution to endurance, why decisions, not tools, now determine maximum advantage.